Well, greetings to everyone. Paul J. Leslie with the Expanding Perceptions channel. Today, I'm talking with a very dear friend of mine, Catherine Carrigan. Catherine is a best-selling author of over 10 books. She's a medical intuitive healer, and she's the host of the Natural Healing Show on UK Health Radio. Today, I thought she and I could talk a little bit about a subject that more and more people are talking about, and that's being an empath and being empathic and how to monitor those kind of issues, and also some info about her healing work and kind of the direction she's heading in. So, Catherine, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you, Paul, and hello, everybody out there. Thanks for listening. My goal is always to be truly helpful.
Well, you're a very helpful person. I'll just say for the record, you've been very helpful to me personally, and some great coaching I've received from you and also to my family as well. And I appreciate that. Let's start with this idea of empaths. Now, sometimes this being the term that someone says, I'm an empath, going back to being empathic, being able to understand and connect with other people's emotions. But there are some people who are naturally a little more sensitive. They pick up on things that other people don't. They go into fields such as, my background in psychology, alternative healing, nutrition, all these kind of avenues. Could you tell me kind of about, before we really get into it, your own journey as a medical intuitive healer in the realm of being empathic? This is something that I assume you've always kind of had.
Absolutely. So I want to start out for our audience and kind of give a brief definition of what is an empath. An empath is someone who is highly sensitive to the energy and emotions of the people and environment around them. Okay. And when I was younger, I struggled with severe depression and mental illness. And it really was only as I began to really understand my gifts and understand who I am as a person and my gifts that I understand what I was dealing with. Because I think that many people who are high in empathy in general feel overloaded and feel overwhelmed. And you may not be able to differentiate, what's my emotions, what's my energy, and what's the energy and emotions of the people around me, even the planet. I think that this is a very difficult time to be an empath. We've lived through the coronavirus pandemic. Now we're dealing with war in Ukraine, and highly sensitive people can pick up on all of this, even if you do not understand what it is that you're picking up. So if you are an empath and you're highly sensitive, you want to learn how to have good boundaries so that you don't take on the energy and emotions of everyone around you. And a psychologist said a really wise thing to me years ago. She said, if you're a highly sensitive person, you have to learn how to become strong enough to handle your sensitivity.
Mm-hmm. And that's true, because I've noticed sometimes people who aren't as sensitive or empathic don't quite understand why other people who are become more disoriented, more using the same word, sensitive. Maybe they react in a totally different way, whereas people maybe who are more left-brained, if you will, who are more the calculating, not as emotional types, don't process that information a lot of times. And if they do, it's totally outside their awareness. So when someone goes through the world and they are more empathic and more sensitive, it is, I think, important for those boundaries. Could you talk just a little bit about boundaries in general for people who are healers like yourself, people who are empathic? How do you set those, and how do you differentiate when you're supposed to have them and when you're not?
Okay. And, we could spend the entire time talking about boundaries and how incredibly important they are. So the first thing to understand is that if you are a highly sensitive person, that you're going to need to set boundaries. And this is literal and energetic. so first of all, a really good thing to do, a really good exercise, if you will, if you realize that you're an empath, is about 3 times a day to get by yourself and tune into yourself and ask yourself a really simple question, which is, how do I feel? And tune into yourself. How does my body feel? What are my emotions? Just how am I doing today? And then if your energy or emotional state shifts within, the next 8 hours, then you ask yourself a question. And I have a joking way of putting it. Is this me or is this Memorex? In other words, it could be my emotion. It could be my energy, but maybe I picked up the energy and emotion of somebody around me, right? And this could be literally, again, the energy of the world, okay? A lot of sensitive people are picking up, frequencies of war and distress, right? Or it could be, again, a family member. Or maybe you went to Walmart and the checker was in a grumpy mood, and then suddenly you're in a grumpy mood. So 3 times a day, getting by yourself and really tuning in so that and can take responsibility for the energy that you bring into the world. Another really simple thing to do is, if you realize, gosh, I think I picked something up. I've been talking to Paul and I was in a really good mood, and now I'm kind of, grumpy, and, maybe I picked something up there. Well, you want to set your intention to clear that energy, because just recognizing that it's not your energy can sometimes clear about 50% of it. So let me give an example. Years ago, I was doing healing work, and the last client of the day was somebody who had neck pain. So I get rid of her neck pain. I go upstairs because my office is in my home. Talk about boundaries. My house is 3 stories. My office is on the ground floor. I live on the top 2 floors. So having separation is important. So anyway, I go up to make dinner and I'm like, wait, my neck hurts. And I'm like, that's not my neck pain. That's this other person's neck pain. But you can clear your energy, and I'll demonstrate for our audience how to do that. So what I do is I rub my hands together. I gather some chi, gather energy. I rub my hands together and I pass my hands over my head, setting my intention to release any energy that's not mine. And, another analogy that I give is, sometimes if you're ever vacuuming your house and you think, my house isn't that dirty, and then you vacuum and it's like, oh my God, there's all this dust, who knew? And when you go to clear your energy, sometimes you may not realize, okay, how much energy you've picked up from the people around you. And when you are totally clear, you're going to feel like, okay, I'm in my own energy. But you'll actually feel yourself releasing the energy. And there's another technique, and again, we could talk about all kinds of techniques, but another really helpful technique is cocooning. So you clear your energy, just like I demonstrated, and then you visualize a bubble of white light all around you, and you visualize the white light, you call in the white light of protection. And then around the white light of protection, you visualize the blue light of healing. And this is like a clear light blue, like an aquamarine blue, if you're familiar with an aquamarine crystal. And then around that, you surround yourself with the golden light of transformation. And you set your intention, nothing comes in and nothing goes out except unconditional love. So if I don't allow any energy into my personal space but unconditional love, and I don't send anything energy out but unconditional love, then I'm good. So, but all this is definitely a practice. And, again, you may be really, really good at protecting your energy, but it's that one time when you pick up something from somebody around you and suddenly I call it psychic whack, where all of a sudden you just feel terrible and you don't even know why.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of times, I've even experienced myself, just all of a sudden snapping, and at a level that's so above where I normally can be. And when I'm sitting and trying to figure out why, okay, we obviously, well, maybe I'm tired, maybe I need to eat, all that. But when I haven't found any real discernible etiology for that, often wondered, it's like, am I unconsciously picking up things out of my awareness that don't belong to me? And that sounds like that, from your perspective, that's a very real possibility.
Yes. And, Paul, Leslie, when you and I were just talking before we started this broadcast, you were sharing with me about your audience.
Mhm.
And I believe that many people in your audience are probably going to be like me, and that there's a Myers-Briggs type called an INFJ.
Mhm.
Okay. And it is the most rare of the Myers-Briggs types, my understanding. I think only like 2% of the population. I remember reading about the INFJ, and I'm like, it all makes sense now.
Mhm.
But many of the INFJs are drawn to professions like what you're doing, which is counseling, healing, psychology, and those sort of things. And we're truly drawn to be of service. This is the Myers-Briggs personality of Carl Jung.
Mhm.
If you're familiar, your audience is familiar with Carl Jung. So we're real idealists, and we want to make a difference in the lives of others, but we have to learn how to handle our truly exquisite sensitivity.
Mhm.
And, that sensitivity can become a superpower if you learn how to handle it. And if you don't learn how to handle it, you're going to be mentally ill. You're going to be overcome with depression and anxiety and just feeling overwhelmed all the time and not really even understanding why.
Yeah, it's I've noticed lately there's particularly among a lot of young people, and it may have always been this way, but we see more with social media. A lot of highly sensitive young people are instantly getting involved in a lot of causes and activism and things like that, and are becoming so embroiled in it that a lot of times they're sacrificing their own mental health. And I saw some the other day that there's young people who've never shot a gun or served a day in the military who are trying to go over and literally fight a war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, at the time of our conversation, the situation with Russia and Ukraine. And I'm thinking, well, you could volunteer for the Red Cross to help, but it's like they're so sensitive that maybe it overrides their critical thinking at times, and that seems to me like learning to have a balance with that. Could you speak a little bit, because I know that you have both sides. You're very, I mean, I want to let the audience know you're a graduate of Brown University and a very educated woman, a playwright. You've done a lot of things, so you're able to kind of move in both. People who are sensitive, particularly young people who are very empathic, how do they find that balance from your perspective?
That's a great question. And I actually think that you need to start with your physical body, because for people who are highly sensitive, they can be so sensitive that it affects their physical. And I think it's really important to be grounded. So what are practices that help you ground? Walking barefoot, gardening, physical exercise, lifting weights, doing your taxes, keeping track of your QuickBooks, and living in the real world, right? So those are some of the things that help. Eating regularly, keeping your blood sugar balanced, and having a good sense of being able to tune into your own body and understand what you need. I am a professional intuitive, And I have the ability to read people who I've never met. I don't have to see someone or put my hands on them to know what's wrong or what will make them better. But I have to start with me. And the word intuition means in tune. And it's my belief that you have to be in tune with yourself first before you can be in tune with everybody else. And even I know when I was studying intuition, and this is quite interesting because this is actually very interesting because when people recognize that you're intuitive, they can treat you what I call as a like a psychic Pez dispenser. I remember driving down the interstate one day and somebody I knew called me on the phone. And he's like, my wife left, is she coming back? and so when you're recognized with this ability, again, other people can demand a lot of you. And if you are constantly using your gifts to serve others and not yourself, you can get incredibly drained. And so one of the ways, and a lot of people don't learn this, like people take classes in psychic development and so on. But if you want to develop your intuition, you have to start with yourself first. Okay, what does my body need? You know, what do I need to be happy? How can I serve myself? I turn on my intuition every single day. I wake up and I think, what colors do I need to wear? You know, so today I was like, okay, I need to wear peacock blue for whatever reason. What jewelry do I need to wear? And when you use your gifts for yourself, that's actually paradoxically when your gifts are going to open up more. So being in tune with yourself, beginning with your physical body.
Yeah, and you brought up something too about people who, as I mentioned, trying to find a balance, but I've noticed a lot of times people who are very empathic or who define themselves as very spiritual, and that's a big part of their personality, often neglect the day-to-day things, the ability to run their businesses effectively, because they see they make a distinction between spiritual and not spiritual. And since those things are for them not spiritual, you know, that they end up causing more problems for themselves because they're not focusing on their business or, like, say, paying the taxes. And I know for a lot of people who seem to have the ability to balance those, they just look at everyday life as being spiritual, as opposed to, okay, well, I'm only spiritual when I'm doing my yoga or chanting or attending my, you know, next personal development class. So it's an interesting point you bring up. I mean, how long did it take you to kind of find your way to where you could move among these different realms of experience?
Yes, that's a great question. Well, and I'll just keep this briefly because again, I like to be of service to others, but I was really sick. It was actually a blessing in disguise. And in one of my books, Reading the Soul, I talk about this, about a breakdown to a breakthrough. So what happened to me was I really suffered from mental illness. I was really overloaded. I was really unhappy in the early part of my years. And so I was prescribed psychiatric medication and, you know, I survived. So God bless the doctors, God bless, you know, all the people who helped me. And then what happened was I got really, really sick. And the doctors were like, we don't know what to do with you. All these drugs are killing you. And so I started going to people who did natural healing and I started to get well. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I don't know what this is, but I want to do what they're doing because they're really helping me. And the doctors kind of reached the end of their rope. So I started studying natural healing when I was 34. I'm now 63. So I've been doing this work for 29 years now. Every year I have to like recalculate. I joke I can't count that high, right? But you know, like many healers, it was sort of a personal crisis that led me to learn these other tools. And I actually started by learning something called brain gym, which is just really simple little exercises for healing the brain. And then from there, I met my mentor in healing at a brain gym conference. And I was like, wow, I remember, I'll never forget, because she did healing work with me for 5 minutes in a hallway. And I'm smart enough to realize that she totally changed the course of my entire life in 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to do whatever she does.
Mhm.
And so I studied with her. So I have a mentor in Canada who I've studied with forever, and I have great respect, and I study natural healing from all over the world. But there's no doubt that this overload and overwhelm of energy and information that I was experiencing as a young person affected my physical health. So I had to work really hard for a very long time to become physically healthy. Now at age 63, I don't take any drugs. It's all real, and I am healthy, thank God, inside and out. But again, it's, finding your own grounding, taking care of yourself first, developing the intuition for yourself. And then when you're totally in tune with yourself, it's easier to read others and not be affected by other people's energy.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, a lot of times people who are empathic, very sensitive, find themselves drawn into relationships that are probably not the best for them, because obviously how they feel kind of guides them. And sometimes we trick ourselves or playing out, unconscious generational stuff. What are your thoughts on relationships and empathic abilities?
Well, as you know, there is an unhealthy dance that frequently happens between empaths and narcissists. And empaths are frequently drawn into relationships with these people. And, again, that's a whole other discussion about why that happens. But I think a really good question for everybody to ask themselves when you are in a relationship is, how do I feel around this person? So I'm a gardener and I raise orchids in my healing room, and environment is the most powerful factor. So in the beginning, in any relationship, you can be swept up by the sex and the intensity of the romance. But as the relationship progresses, it's like, how do I really feel around this person? Am I giving up my power in any way? Yeah. Do I stay in my personal power around this person? Is this person trying to control me? And really, when the romance, trying to see through the fog of the romance and really understanding the person that you're with. Is this person trying to control me? Do they have a good code of morals and ethics that I personally agree with? So there's a lot of questions, left brain questions, that you have to ask yourself. And it may take time for you to see through the fog and understand who it is that you're with and how that relationship's affecting you. But if you are an empath in a relationship with a narcissist, and I've definitely done that myself and had, fallen into that trap. So, and it, get help, see someone like Paul who can help you see objective reality and get yourself out of those relationships. But because empaths are it's so easy for us to understand and intuitively know what other people need and want, we can overly focus on the other person in a relationship and to the expense of our own needs and our own wants. So we need to keep track of and keep sight of, what do I need? What do I want? How can I maintain my healthy independence within the context of a larger relationship? And when you keep your independence energetically, emotionally, and on all these levels, you're actually going to have a healthier relationship that's sustainable. Staying in your own energy and maintaining your independence while also being interdependent, which is, that's an art.
Mhm.
And again, you're the psychologist. So my understanding is you have to do you first, and you have to have a healthy relationship with yourself first before you can ever have a healthy relationship with anyone else. So if you recognize I'm not in a good place, well, maybe you need to do some work with Paul Leslie and get yourself right before you're ready to have a healthy relationship.
Mhm. And we often project those things that we're working on onto our partners too, or we bring in people who have the things that we really need to clear up. I mean, I see this quite a bit with the empathic people who have had, really rough childhoods, and they're still with the mom, dad, brother, whatever issues, and they keep bringing in partners that exhibit those same traits. And it's real easy to demonize the partner, even if the behavior is, I agree, could be bad. But instead of going, okay, what is it about me that I'm not healing? Because it's like I'm trying to finish the story, you know?
Yes. Yes. And, I'm human. I put my pants on one leg at a time, like everybody else. And my first marriage was physically abusive. I spent 2 years in a support group for battered women. And it was at that time, I remember writing in my journal, this is ridiculous. I actually want to be happy. I have no idea how to be happy. But it was at that point I made up my mind. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? I'm going to change my life. So, and all of this requires a tremendous amount of personal courage to face yourself and to actually do the inner work so you can resolve those issues so that you're not attracting abusive mom, abusive dad, and replaying the dramas of your childhood, which requires counseling. So very, super important profession. Keep it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, so when somebody's empathic and they say, okay, I don't know, I read the book or listened to this interview, I don't really know where to go from here. And let's say they pick up the phone and call you and say, can you kind of coach me on how to find my way? How do you, I know each person's different and unique, but do you have a kind of a rule in which how you help people with that?
Oh, that's a good question, because and here's how I would start. Not that I'm right, not that I know anything, but there's 4 primary psychic gifts: claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairsentience, and clairaudience. And so each of these gifts, and I joke, it's like being blonde or brunette. It's not wrong or right. It's just every gift has an upside and a downside. And every gift, it's not just how you receive information from your soul, but also how you live your entire life. But I think the way I would do it, to answer your question, is I would determine what is their primary psychic gift. How are they, basically reading the world? How is their soul guiding them? And then based on that, I would help them understand how they are getting overloaded or what they need to do to protect themselves. And the psychic gift who I think has the most challenge with this are the people who are high in clairsentience. Clairsentience is psychic feeling. So the way I like to explain this is, if I put my hand on a hot stove, I don't say, oh my God, what's wrong with my hand? I know that if I remove my hand from the stove, it's not going to feel hot anymore. And people who are high in clairsentience, they're very good people. They're very tuned in to how everybody's feeling. And people who are high in clairsentience, they need other people to feel good so that they can feel good. Because if someone around them, say someone in their family is upset for some reason, they're going to feel unsettled in themselves. So I would start to answer your question by figuring out what your psychic gift is, and then based on that, help you to understand how do you need to filter the information or protect yourself and stay in your own center a little bit better, so you're not overwhelmed and overloaded.
Mm-hmm. And the message that our culture and society sends to us is to be the opposite. You know, if we are sensitive or even just real deep thinkers, it's I don't say it's frowned upon, but a lot of people just aren't that connected with it. And so, it's real easy to feel like an oddball, to feel like there's something wrong with us or wrong with our family member who's like that. And could you just give me your thoughts on dealing with societal cultural messages that often tell us, no, you need to be an extrovert who doesn't feel.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I absolutely felt that way. And again, once you understand the INFJ is the most rare type, it's like, well, yeah, there are not many people like you, and no, they don't actually understand you. But I think it starts with self-understanding, like really, really understanding yourself. And I'll tell you what I do, and this is interesting because I think that this feeling, different, which you actually are different. I mean, a lot of people feel different, but they're pretty much the same as everybody else. But when you're an INFJ and highly sensitive, and you're like receiving all this psychic information all the time, you actually are different. But what I'll tell you what actually helps me, and is I have a prayer practice. So every morning I wake up and I say the Lord's Prayer, and then I have a group of 13 people, one of whom is myself, that I pray for every single day. And I do a loving kindness prayer for them. So a loving kindness meditation is, may Paul be well and free from illness. May Paul be safe and free from harm. May Paul be happy. May Paul be at peace. So every morning I pray for at least 13 people, and I do this practice twice a day. And so that even though I know that I actually am an oddball, I'm an unusual person, however, I am deeply connected to people that I love and care about. And I have this meaningful connection with these people. And so it's spiritual family, spiritual community. And it's funny because I know that for many of us, we were all thrown for a loop when the COVID pandemic started. And it was quite challenging for many of us for lots of different reasons. But I actually overcame my lifelong loneliness during this time because I really started praying very sincerely. And although I'd always prayed my whole life, and I'd always had a prayer and meditation practice, but by praying and sending this loving kindness to these people, I feel connected and I feel a part of a meaningful spiritual family and spiritual community. And that helps me sort of see and feel my place in the world, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, because no matter who you are, your soul, you have a spiritual purpose. And even if you don't know your purpose, you definitely have one. And when you're honoring that you're a soul and that you're here to make a difference in the lives of others, then you can feel this profound, loving connection with the world around you and feel like you belong, which you actually do, even if you know that you're actually a little different. I hope that helps. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it does. Thank you. Well, this has been a fascinating exploration into kind of your introduction to your work and also empathic way of being in the world. If people do want to follow up with you and find out more about your work, can you just kind of give an overview of the best way to reach you and what do you have going on lately?
Oh, thank you. Well, I have two websites, CatherineCarrigan.com and UnlimitedEnergyNow.com. And while you're there, you can sign up for my newsletter. I also produce videos on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube person, you can look up Catherine Carrigan on YouTube. And I make videos of my radio show, the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. But I also have lots of videos where I share different healing techniques. And some of my healing techniques, you can watch the videos. During the COVID pandemic, I produced a lot of videos to help people, whether it's overcome PTSD, loneliness, how to heal your lungs. So lots of useful information there on YouTube. And then I'm on social media. So you can listen to my newsletter. And of course, my 10 books are available on Amazon. If you don't like to read, 8 of them are available in audiobook format.
Well, thank you for being with me, Catherine, and thank you for your service because as long as I've known you, it's always been about service to other people. So I appreciate you giving me the service today of your time, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you, Paul, and thank you, everybody out there for listening. Hopefully that was helpful.
It was. Thank you.